Hi there, Rob here again with another video. Thank you for joining me, and as ever, thank you for liking, subscribing and sharing. And if you haven't done one of those things, why not? Today's video is about practice. I've been watching a few drum videos coming up on like Instagram and YouTube about rudiments. And you know, rudiments are like drummers' scales, you know, not literally scales, but like when you learn scales on a tuned instrument. You know, that helps the melodic tuned instrument musician to get round music. It helps them to understand how people are writing music, how it works. It's all kind of laws, isn't it? It's all set up in stone, so you understand the methods of what's going on. And with rudiments, it's the very same thing in the drum world. These help us to, you know, understand notation, rhythm, time signatures, you know, independence and coordination and syncopation, all those things, all the shuns. And I think they're, you know, still really important now as they ever were. And I was talking to one of my students yesterday in his drum lesson, Gavin, and, you know, we were talking about a few different things. One of them, actually, I'll just throw in here while we can, is the fact that it's interesting that if you think about how popular music, rock and roll, pop, you know, whatever you want to call it, rack, funk, fusion, you know, all those things. But up until sort of 1970, because swing music and jazz music was still quite popular generally, a lot of the drummers, you know, that we talk about, like Charlie Watts, let's talk about the classics, like Charlie Watts and Ringo, had a lot of swing in their playing because it was in their listening. It was in the zeitgeist, you know, it was out there. They were aware of it because that style of music was as popular as the rock and roll that they were kind of helping to invent. And then you get to the mid-60s and Mitch Mitchell's coming through, Ian Paice, John Bonham, and those guys have a swing in their playing as well. It's still there. Then you maybe get to 75, 76, 78, you know, a bit later, and you think, well, that swing has gone a little bit in popular music, because another generation has since come up, and if they're not listening to swing, which they weren't, they were listening to the rock and roll that was coming before, then that swing kind of disappeared. So, you know, let me know what you think about that. Leave it in the comments. But I think it's quite a tangible thing. I think you can see it and hear it in the music. As I say, if you listen to sort of like AC/DC, there's no swing in that music. It's very, very straight, and it's brilliant. You know, I'm not knocking it. It's great. Whereas the rock of like Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, had a little bit of swinging it, had a little bit of swing within the music. So yeah, interesting. And then you listen to drums like Neil Peart, who's an incredible player, but you don't see a lot of inherent swing in his playing. And again, and it's not knocking these guys or these bands. It's just, it's more of a kind of a study in what was happening to the music and how the writers and composers and the bands were thinking about styles and feels. Anyway, that's just another thing. So let me know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Boom, boom, boom. And yeah, so getting back to the rudiments, it's important that we learn them. So we get hand independence, syncopation, all those things. And we can also start getting around the drum set. Now, this is an old kind of saying, but a lot of older drummers, I remember saying to me when I was growing up, was if you can't play the snare drum, you can't really play the rest of the kit. And again, that's one of those comments that you can throw it out there. And sometimes I agree with it, sometimes I don't. But I basically know what the theory of that is. And I kind of agree with it, that if your hands aren't good to start with on one drum, they're not going to be very good moving around the kit. But of course, there are some people that maybe don't play rudiments well, or their hand control and technique isn't good. But when they sit on a kit, they've got a feel and a groove, you know. So these things they're not blanket. You can't just say that's one saying and that goes straight across the board, you know. That's not true, is it? There's always these anomalies, and thank goodness, because it makes music really, really, really. Hey, Mr. Postman. Oh, hang on a minute. Okay, so I'm back. So it was the postman, well, post lady, bringing a package. How exciting, but it really wasn't anything that exciting, to be honest. But anyway, there we go. So, woohoo, it's all happening in real time. Yeah, so getting back to the rudiments, it helps us to get around the drum. So as I say, those blanket statements of, oh, listen, lad, if you can't play the snare, you can't play the rest of the kit. It's not true. But what we have to do with all this immense and this huge volume of information out there, you know, from word of mouth, but also from the internet, we have to kind of compile it together into something that makes sense to us. And equally, if you, like me, in that cupboard over there, I've got piles of drum books that I bought, like heaps of them. And, you know, equally, you could pull out one drum book and say, this is amazing for a certain technique or a certain thing, but it isn't the only book. So as human beings, we're always going to be pushing through, trying to find our own way through all of this. And all of the information out there is important. We just have to kind of siphon out the things that work for us. Put it through like a conduit and let it come out the bottom, and that becomes our style and the way we play. So anyway, but practicing these rudiments is really, really important. And if you're one of those drummers out there thinking, maybe I should get into it, yeah, do so. I always say this to all of my students and any musicians that I'm out there mentoring or whatever, is that, you know, you can never have too much information. All of it is really, really useful. So nothing is going to hinder you, you know. So anything you learn, sticking wise, notation wise, all of this stuff, it's all going to help. So what I was thinking was, I've recorded, I think it's 4 or 5 clips of me playing along to the same piece of music on a practice pad. So when I hear people say, oh, I'm bored with my practice, I don't know what to do, just sitting on a pad with a metronome is boring. Okay, fine. You know, I'm not going to argue that and get into the details of that. I personally find it very meditative getting into that sort of thing. But also what I do is I post on my shorts and my reels, me playing along to some electronic music, because I've said before, I can't compose songs like, you know, Brian Wilson or anything, you know, or Paul McCartney. I just understand soundscapes, and I love electronic music through Kraftwerk and Gary Newman and Brian Eno and Steve Reich and the minimalistic music and Philip Glass and all that. So I come up with my own little combinations of tunes just on GarageBand on this laptop. And I pick different time signatures, I pick different feels, and I pick different tempos. And then I sit with the pad and see what I can come up with. Sometimes I film them and put them out as reels and shorts, but sometimes I keep some to myself. Sometimes I don't even film them at all. But today I've come up with this nice little thing, found some nice little chords that I liked. And again, it's only a minute long, because one of them will become a short on YouTube and a reel or whatever on Instagram, story, whatever they're called. So I've done 5 of them. One was using double strokes. One of them was using flams. One of them was like a freestyle run through of doing whatever I felt like. One was more thinking of groove based stuff. And one was using rolls. And, you know, there's just 5 concepts, but you could do another one using drags. You could use another one with just maybe one hand, you know, leading, or just one hand, left hand all the way through, right hand all the way through. I could do buzz rolls, you know, I could do loads of different things, you know. But, you know, maybe this is a way that you could spice up your practice time and your practice sessions. You know, you compose a little piece of music that's maybe only a minute, 2 minutes long, you know, and again, don't kind of spend loads of time doing it that you don't actually practice. Just throw some ideas together. And on GarageBand, you can go to synthesizer and there's some rhythmic things where you can just press one of the keys and it comes up with a rhythm in that tempo that you've selected, and it can act as like a backing for you. So if the tempo's here, 2, 3, 4, you could pick a certain sound that goes ba 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 ba, and maybe oscillates and changes one 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 as it goes or something, you know, and then all of a sudden you're left with that gives you a certain vibe, you know, and you can press any key to make it happen. Doesn't matter. We're not worried about the melodic structure as such. And then maybe a bass drum just playing 4 to the floor. Then you experiment with some other sounds. And again, you could get lost for hours doing this because the sounds on these things are amazing, and you can mess with them as well. And you can mess with the equalizers and all sorts of stuff. But, you know, it's like try and keep on your mind on the game. So get something going, and then you can start messing about with the tempo of it and the time signature as well, as if you want. But just keep it in 4/4 to start with. And you can just mess with the tempos and then just work through it and think, right, this time around, I'm going to practice my rolls, my groove, but, you know, all the stuff I just said, basically. Don't need to go through them again. Or just freestyle it and have some fun just playing around the ideas. I think it's a really good way to pep up your practice on a practice pad. Now on a kit, you could take maybe some in-ears and do the similar thing on a kit. Or if you're in a practice room, you could play it through the PA if they've got some monitors or something, or get the speakers fairly near you, but not too near you because you blow your ears out. You know, don't want anybody writing to me saying I told them to put speakers here. And it's similar with the in-ears. Don't have them too loud. Do it so it's a reasonable volume. And just go out and play and record it. And then before you know it, you might feel that you want to put those out as shorts yourself, you know, in reels. You might find that you think, hang on a minute, I'm enjoying this, because that's what happened to me. So one, it's making me work melodically in a minute, try and get something interesting that's a vibe. And then obviously I can practice to it. And then one of those practice videos I make, I think might be good enough to be a short or a reel, you know. And I think, right, I'm going to put one of those out. So yeah, so this is about practicing rudiments, maybe changing your mindset a little bit. And of course, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm around this summer, I'm not on tour with Susie or with Lorena or anyone else for that matter. So I'm available for online lessons or mentoring, and, you know, obviously face-to-face lessons as well. And just get in touch. You know, my email is here, or drop something in the comments if you want to get in touch and use some of this mad experience that I've got in my head. More than happy to take on students at the moment. It's no problem at all. And I'm looking forward to you guys contacting me and starting with some new students. It'll be really good fun. So let me know what you think about this. You can always drop something in the comments. But yeah, rudiments, they are really important. And just from the snare drum, we can then take them around the kit. But until we've got a command of them on the pad and understanding up here and here, then we can't really take them anywhere. So maybe try this concept. I hope you enjoy it. You know, I'll chuck the videos on this so you can see what I'm talking about, so you can see what I was working on this morning. And as ever, stay groovy, stay safe, keep drumming, keep loving, keep being peaceful, and I shall see you on the next video.